What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by PingPong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Kramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest in the Amazon and e-commerce space. What does that mean for you? Well, if you're watching this for the first time, that means you're going to get something applicable to your business by the end of the show. We're going to be talking about anything from sourcing, logistics, to marketing and advertising, all the way to we've talked with localization, international expansion, you name it, we cover it here on the podcast. But this is a live and interactive show. So if you see my face popping up on social media and you want to engage with us, that is a good time to go ahead and ask your questions about that topic. Again, go into the comment section below if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Any of those locations, you can actually submit your questions through and let our guest, talk to us. Or if this is after the fact and you don't catch us live, no worries. We'll tag our guest and make sure that they answer the questions that you might have and always point to you to their website, to how you can get in touch with them, so on and so forth. But before we get started on today's 211th episode, every episode from the beginning since to now is presented by PingPong Payments. Who's PingPong Payments? They are a cross-border payment solution helping people save time, money, and effort. What does that look like? Well, if you're paying out suppliers, manufacturers, VAs, if you have an employee that's working internationally in Canada and you're in the United States and you want to pay them out in their local currency, don't pay fees through banks. Go ahead and sign up for free with PingPong Payments. It's free to do. It's easy. You save money and put that back in your pocket to apply it to your business and grow in other places. You can do that by signing up at usa.pingpongx.com/podcast. And you can listen to all of our past episodes, but also sign up for free today. Like I said, it's a 211th episode. We cover such the gauntlet of topics here in Crossover Commerce, and today is no exception. One of my favorite newer social media apps I've had to very much distance myself because it's a suck in terms of visibility, consumership, anything like that is TikTok. And it's kind of one of those black box options of how do people figure it out? How do people either become influencers? We've covered a lot of different topics, but one of the more fascinating ways is to how do brands take advantage of a platform that isn't quintessentially a fire hose. It's coming at you. There's nowhere to go but through that fire hose, if you will, of constant streams up and down. You know what I'm talking about if you're listening or watching this, visualizing just going up and down. Unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram, you don't have many places you can go or hide. If you're a brand, it's all right in front of you. So you can make a big impact when you can figure out TikTok. But how do you do that? What are those ways? So that's why we had actually called today's episode, How to Scale TikTok Ads and Regain Lost Traffic. Lost traffic you might be getting from TikTok. Who knew? But we're going to be talking about that today. So our guest today, just like every other episode, is an expert in the space, someone who is finding these ways to educate our audience. And our guest today is Will Perry, the CEO and CMO of Reason Agency, who's an Amazon e-commerce growth consultancy. He actually dedicated to accelerating growth for e-commerce business through 13 years of experience in Reason's unique and unequality. I'm going to speak today, I promise everyone. Optimization strategies. Please help me welcome, and I'll let him speak for himself because I can't do it too much justice without him speaking for himself. Will Perry of Reason Agency. Will, thank you so much for coming on Crossover Commerce today.
Pleasure, man. Great to be here with you. I feel like we need one of those, like the applause buttons.
I know, I'm working on it.
The intro applause,
I'm going to have one of those dashboards. Yeah, I don't have any of these right now, but supposedly through StreamYard, fun fact, you can do sound overlay. So it's going to be coming soon, hopefully. I do have here we go. Here, this might be more applicable to it. There's a thumbs up emoji for everyone. So there we go. Will Perry thumbs up emojis for the listener out there. Will, thank you so much joining us from, I said sunny Florida, typically sunny Florida, but the happiest place on earth, Orlando, Florida. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, right here downtown. probably 20 minutes from the theme parks, as everybody knows us for, of course. And
Right.
today is one of very few non-sunny days here in Florida. You can see a little bit out the corner of my window how gray it is, and it's
Looks
it's
sunny
our
for me.
winter time. It's our winter time here now.
Yeah, I was gonna say we were joking before this, listener and everyone in the audience of we were joking of it got negative degrees here. It shouldn't go that way. I feel like 0 should be the lowest you can go. Never feel negative, but we got to negative today here in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I would take what you have any day of the week. But hey, so for you're in Orlando, Will, we talked a little bit about your background pre-show. Tell me about where we are today. Like, how did you, like, what brought you on this journey to starting an agency and kind of doing
Man,
paid ads, if you will?
I actually kind of like this story a little bit because, ironically, I grew
I hope
up
so. It's
in
yours.
what's that?
I hope so. It's yours.
Yeah, that's true. Is so I grew up in South Jersey, and so as anybody who grew up in the Philadelphia, New York, South Jersey area, we always kind of have like this little chip on our shoulder to some degree, right? Like we always feel like we have something to prove. And so like going back, this is like 14 years ago at this point, how I even got started in marketing. My then boss at the time literally handed me a Canon camera, and I was in the golf business. She handed me this camera, takes me to the back of the driving range. So for anybody who, is a golfer, somewhat of a sports fan, I was then at that time the marketing manager of a really elite junior golf academy. So she gives me this camera, sends me to the back of the driving range to take photos. I'd never taken photos in my life. And basically said good luck. And that entire journey, like, just basically showed me that I had to take like responsibility and ownership for my career and my path and what I wanted in my life, and then later as an entrepreneur, because no one was going to give it to me, right? It was like, go figure it out. Good luck, kid, right? And taught myself SEO and PPC and lead gen, and we were running TV ads on Golf Channel, and I was doing international business with guys in China, taking calls at 12 o'clock at night, recruiting and selling and all the things. And, I eventually got to this point where, like, I was doing these like 6-figure deals, basically trying to get families to literally send their children from halfway around the world to come to our golf academy. And I realized, I'm like, man, I'm starting to get pretty good at this sales thing. And, I had always had this desire to be an entrepreneur and, have my own business and lead a team. And at the same time, sparing all of the scars that a lot of us probably have as in our careers and whatnot, is I just wasn't really happy. I felt really stuck there, which was the last role that I was in, and I was ready to just sort of like spread my wings. And that's what started me into the agency world. And we've worked with 6, 7, and 8-figure brands. And here we are. We've dealt, just like many others that have probably listened to this show, with the iOS issues from last year and things like that. And that's a lot of the big reason why we're here today, to talk about TikTok and some of the things that we've been testing over the last probably 12 to 18 months that hopefully will help some of your listeners. So hopefully that's a good intro. Hopefully I
That's
didn't
a good intro.
steal the mic too much there.
No, you're good. No, everyone knows that the less I talk, the better. No, which is, I'm just a host. I'm here to learn from other people, and that's the beauty of this podcast. Well, a couple things, Will, that stand out to me. One, you had to learn on the go, and it wasn't just like, oh, you miraculously, like, you're just given, you just knew what to do. Like that's
Yeah.
never the case. It's always the grunt work that you have to do. I'm hoping the tagline was never send us your children for that golf academy of that might get taken down really quickly, but I
Yeah.
digress. But yeah, finding out marketing and finding ways, you nailed it on the head of people trying to circumvent technology, which is really funny to think about. Circumvent technology in order to utilize other technology for your benefit. You talked about, I think it's like 13.5 or what's a 14.5 update on iOS? I forget the number.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
iOS 14.5, I want to say
14.5.
that the last like big update was really like around the end of May.
Mhm.
And that's when the proverbial, expletive word hit the fan, right? Like we
Right.
were fortunately, like if you've been running ads in the space for a while, or, if you have an e-com brand and you're probably doing like 7, 8 figures, like this isn't, or more, 9 figures, even, like this isn't news to you. Like you'd probably had already been starting to prep in like early 2020, which is when Facebook rolled out the conversion API, but nobody really knew what that meant, right? Like Facebook conversion API, like cool. And at that time, we had already started testing some other attribution softwares like Heros and Wicked Reports and things like that to try to see what was going to happen when this data loss started happening. Started, testing Snapchat ads, more into TikTok ads, more into YouTube and things like that. As you can imagine, the majority of e-com is really built on the back of Facebook and secondarily Google, and vice versa, depending on, of course, how big your product, SKU, or I should say your product catalog is, and things like that. And, coming into, 2020, it was really about like, what's going to happen with Facebook? Like we should really start preparing for this. And we're getting so many requests for TikTok right now because of, so many brands saw declines in sales, and especially Q3 last year before Q4. It's hard to really like truly project because you've got obviously the Q4 wave that all e-com brands experience. And so sales were still going to be there. But that Q3 dip was a pretty massive dip for a lot of brands. Fortunately, for an agency like ourselves, we didn't actually lose any clients through that time period. Fortunately, we had been preparing for a long time, but, countless stories of, and we're still hearing it, where brands are trying to regain lost traffic. They're trying to regain decline in sales, in their direct to consumer channels. I'm sure a lot of your listeners also run, Amazon and things like that as well. That D2C channel, so many brands were seeing, declines in sales or ROI because of trying to figure out tracking and Facebook ads and things like this. And it really was just the perfect storm for TikTok to just come in as the superhero, right? And be like, hey guys, like come check us out. Here's free ad credits. Like, it's so easy to run ads and all the things. And, it was really good for someone like myself, selfishly, who, I mean, I've made companies millions and millions of dollars with Facebook ads and spent millions of dollars with Facebook ads. But it's like, you had an episode, I think it was earlier this month, about sales channel diversification.
Yep.
And I think right now, even though like, I'm sure you guys have heard this message before, like this isn't the first time in the last 12 months, channel diversification right now is more important than ever. Facebook ad costs are going up in a variety of industries, and CPMs, cost per thousand, through TikTok, are insanely low. Like I'm talking 1/5 to 1/10 the price than what Facebook is running. And it's really like the gold rush time period of getting into TikTok right now, where it's not overly saturated with competition or advertisers, which is why I've been pushing so many people to test the channel, because like you got to get it when the going's good. And this is one of those times.
Right. Well, and by the way, there's billions of, it's the number one social media app in terms of visibility,
Yep.
usership. I mean, it's setting all sorts of records. And for those out there, if someone is under a rock and they don't know TikTok, obviously, what's the length of a video? It's what, 30 seconds maximum? Is that
Yeah. I mean,
typical? It's
yeah.
very short-lived, short bullet points. Again,
Yep.
trendy. In the terms of the, I would say
Z-ish.
Gen Z, very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I was gonna say, for those 30 and under, I would say very much trending in that direction, not because of just the lack of focus, but because of that's what content is now. It's just all video based. It's a lot of it
Yep.
is trying to one up people because there's this wave of usership. A lot of people are kind of jumping on and they're creating their own content. A lot of organic traffic. And I mentioned this in the beginning, and how important is this to Will, of there's only one source of content that it shoots at you. And it's a fire hose, don't get me wrong, but it's one source. Unlike in Instagram, you have stories, you have posts, you have search bar, you have all this other crap. I say
Mhm.
crap. other places where you
Yeah.
can pop up and find other
Distractions. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Where do I go? Where do I create content? Is it on my story? Is it on post? What is it? How do I do that? And then same with Facebook. It's in groups. It's in ads galore. It really is a lot of different places to diversify, but it's only one source. Is that the main bullet point that you're taking, that you're saying, look, yeah, it's going to pop up. It's cheap, but it's also, people can't not find you if it gets served to them. They have to see
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that like one, the competition's so low. So like if you're a apparel brand or you're a, even a supplement brand, which is some of the most competitive, D2C product, whether you're Amazon or selling through your website, some of the most competitive space to be in. There's such a lack of other brands running traffic there because they haven't figured it out. So to your point, to pick up, what you were throwing down there was like, the feed and TikTok is such a focused sort of environment, right? And I think that's what you were getting at, is there's not like the right hand column. There's not like, different, a bunch of other features and things that sort of could pull your attention. And as an advertiser, as a brand, a D2C brand, if you can create really engaging content on the platform, because you're right, people are just swiping, right? Swipe, 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 and all they see are those videos in their feed on TikTok. And what we really coach brands up on is, and creators, is how important the first 3 to 5 seconds is, the hook, right? Like, especially because the nature of the platform is to literally just blow through videos. Next one, next one, next one. You've got to capture the attention on TikTok even faster than what you're doing even on Instagram or Facebook. And I see a lot of brands that are struggling to actually adapt to the platform. Like, they have these ways of like, they want to continue to run their Facebook ad content on TikTok, and it just doesn't work that way. Like, if anything, you actually want to make TikToks or TikTok ads and run them on your Facebook and Instagram. And the reason why is they're so much more highly engaging. We're talking fast cuts with the actual videos, 3 to 5 second frames where you're, like you said, you're creating 20 to 30 second videos. You're using trending music in order to capture attention. There's ways of finding that, in the actual app and through the desktop app as well, if you're working from, the office or what have you. And like really prioritizing that hook, right? Prioritizing the text overlay capability, simple, just sort of text overlays on the videos, in order to capture attention, and running tons of variations. Another thing with TikTok is it demands so much more creative and ad creative. And even with, Facebook and Instagram, the last, probably 12 to 24 months, brands we're already starting to see this need for producing so much more creative, sometimes dozens, if not hundreds of creatives per month for paid social, especially if you're running anything more than like a 6-figure budget, per month. And, TikTok is demanding even more than that. So a lot of what we share with people is, simple ways to scale their creative output through variations of what we call the winning ad formula. And so, like, let's say that you have a winning ad, right? So you've got this unboxing video where somebody receives, the food delivery, the fresh food, delivery at the house. And that video just absolutely crushes it. And this would remain to be true for Facebook and Instagram too, if you're running on those platforms. And so what you want to do is stick to that winning ad formula. And you could very simply turn that one ad into 8 or 16 different ads by doing these two things. Number one, adjust the first 3 to 5 seconds of the video and prioritize the hook. So instead of, the initial hook might be something like, oh my God, my fresh food delivery finally got here. I can't wait to try it. Hook number one. Hook number two is, wow, I'm drawing a blank. I do this all the time, right? Hook number two might be something more like, have you ever tried freshly, home, delivered meals, right? I don't work with Freshly, by the way. so prioritizing those two different hooks in the first 3 to 5 seconds. And then you might have, 3, 4, or 5 different text overlays like headlines, true direct response headlines that you've tested and things like that you can also use with that winning ad. And now you've got anywhere from 6, to 8 combinations of that winning ad that you can now go and test, Facebook or TikTok. And so just some simple ways to really scale up your creative output and really stay true to what's working. We always find that when you introduce way too many variables, that's when your performance goes awry. And so, a philosophy that we use is what we call ad variable isolation. If you remember us from when we were back in elementary school and middle school, you'd have a control in the experiment, you'd have a variable in the experiment. But the problem with the way that 99% of people run ads is they pick random copy, random headlines, random creatives. Sometimes they change the offer, sometimes they change the product, then they change the audience, and then they struggle to figure out sort of like what's working, or even worse, like what's not working. And it's so important, especially on TikTok, because it's so driven by the creative, to really isolate the variables of what you are testing and to be in 100% control of what you're putting into it so that you can scale the platform. Because I want to see brands, spending 6 figures, 7 figures to regain some of the declines that they saw from having to pull away from Facebook, in the last 6 months. So just a little bit of a rant there. What definitely went on a rant.
That's okay. We sympathize with rants on this podcast. So a couple of things that are standing out, Will, that kind of want to go back to. Yeah. First off, why is TikTok immune to this update that's so important? Why Facebook is struggling? Why a lot of marketers are struggling? Why is TikTok immune to this? First off,
so they're not necessarily immune per se. Like, it's really the conversion API component of being able to track, right? And so, a lot of brands have had to figure that part out with how to track. And in reality, which we could do a whole episode just on attribution and tracking, sure. I'm sure, right? But is that like, somebody like Heroes, which I'm a huge advocate of if you're spending, pretty serious dollars in paid traffic, it's really forced a lot of brands to really think in a binary way, if I'm using the context right, like where the actual conversion came from. And the problem is, like, pre-iOS was that you'd have, for example, like Google and Facebook reporting the same conversion, or Google, Snapchat, and Facebook reporting the same conversion. Mm-hmm. But when you go, my Google guys will know about this, because Google Analytics has always been sort of last click attribution, right? Based typically on UTM. But the problem is that Facebook has included so much view through attribution with the ad platform over the years. If you've been a media buyer or the founder or a CMO or a marketing director or whatever, trying to diagnose, like, why does my Facebook data never match up with like what the bank account says or what Shopify says? It's because the ad platforms have always over-reported. And so to get myself back on track here real quick is that people have trusted the ad platform data so much that they've almost treated it as like this holy grail, whereas it's kind of forced us to find, as advertisers, as marketers, digital marketers, et cetera, it's forced us to find like this new source of truth. And the new source of truth is really like a last click attribution model. And I'm sort of working to tie it back here together with TikTok, is that it's being able to both look at assisted conversions and last click conversions and first touch conversions. And the moral of the whole story is basically that, like, Facebook's never been as good as what you thought it was, right? And like, so it's not necessarily that TikTok is what's the word?
Immune.
Not susceptible to,
right?
Or anything like that. It's the fact that Facebook has always over-reported. They've reported to you for years email conversions and SMS conversions and view-through conversions and Google conversions. Remember that this attribution window used to be a 28-day window that has now been shrunk down to 7 days. And,
Yeah.
so like brands literally lost 75% of the data. It doesn't actually mean that they were losing sales. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know
Right.
how to optimize their campaigns. And so what we were seeing is like people would just pull back big time because they were like, I don't know how to optimize now. Like data's not in my ad account. I don't know what to trust. And so it's not as much of a TikTok thing, even though you asked it from a TikTok perspective. It's really more of like how are we going to look at conversions and attribution as a brand?
It shook the model that was tried
It
and
shook the
true, and
model.
everyone yeah, okay, gotcha. I
Yeah,
mean, I just wanna make that clear for a listener out there of what's actually missing in this piece, and it's probably the center of the pie of it doesn't look
correct.
right, it doesn't feel right, but, hey, the outsides and the other parts that are left still taste just as good, and
Yeah,
it's doing the thing
exactly.
well, and again, this is also very difficult, I'm assuming, because of the pullback, the initial jerk reaction, there's a
Yeah,
lot of, like there's a lot of catching up Amazon or I won't say Amazon, Facebook wants to do. So they're hiking
yeah,
pricing or there's a lot of outside variables that are not being friendly to it. One and the fact
mhm,
is on the show we talked about, Amazon does not play nicely with Facebook ads as much anymore because of
yep,
attribution of where the traffic is coming from. Now it's being tried and true of, hey, if I can send traffic from Pinterest, if I can still send it from Google ads, or if I can send it from off Amazon sites like D2C sites to purchase on Amazon, still very good. Not as rewarded as much anymore through the likes of Facebook or Instagram. So it's unique, and TikTok is another one that's sliding in there clearly um, as well. So tell me, Will, what is so if I'm listening to this, I'm like, Will's telling me I need to be on TikTok. What are the reasons to be on TikTok besides what we've already covered? Like, what are because of the growth, because of all these things, because of the cost? What's the major selling point that gets people to say, "Yep, I'm in"?
yeah, totally. A few different things. Number one, CPM. So you touched on it briefly there. Overall, is like, I mean, we're seeing most brands. It's going to depend industry by industry, but I would say, we're running ads on Facebook where we still see CPMs of 30, 40, $50 for brands. There are some brands where we're seeing, $10, $15 CPMs. But I'm seeing like $5, $3 and $5 CPMs on TikTok. So we're talking like way less expensive to even reach your audience. And so that's sort of number one. Number two, the lack of competition. Like, so if you're an apparel brand, if you are, a health and wellness brand, if you sell subscriptions, especially the subscription space, like you guys have such an advantage with LTV and being able to outspend anybody that has $100 AOV or lower. Nonetheless, there's so little competition to be able to reach the audience that you want to reach. So that's the second thing. Number three, the engagement is so freaking high, right? Like people are spending so much time on TikTok and they're consuming a ton of content. So if you can really create like super native looking videos, again, 20 to 30-second videos that do not look like ads. I'm talking, do not turn the creative over to your designer to have them design you a 20 to 30-second GIF. No, I'm talking like give the phone to your 13-year-old daughter and have her do a review of the product because she's going to know how to cut the video. She's going to know how to make it super fun, super engaging. Use that little robot voice thing that we've probably all heard like 100 times now at this point. You want to be able to, and I would say Facebook and Facebook advertisers are still struggling about with this to this day. Like we've been pushing the methodology of going native for like years now, and they still, so many brands still want to push the brand, right? They still want to push like the brand aesthetic. And I totally get that. As someone who has a background in brand marketing prior to direct response, like I get the need to be on brand. But with paid social, it's more important to look like a post within the channel than it is to be on brand. And that's a tough pill to swallow for most brands. So that third one is super native content, low competition. And then honestly, like if you're looking to regain lost traffic and you've pulled back your Facebook spend last year, here's a channel that you can easily start to scale and spend on that you can drive sales with. And then lastly, like, this is a little bit more theoretical, but I teach a lot of media buyers and CMOs and stuff what I call the Adderall Y formula. And the Adderall Y formula is basically, and I'm about to get kind of nerdy and techie, so I hope I don't lose some of you guys.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So the Adderall Y formula, like most brands, really struggle to project what the profitability or like proper expectations of advertising can be. I'm sure you've heard it being in the space for a long time where people are like, oh, I need a 5x return on ad spend. And like, but yet I'm selling a $20 product and advertising is expensive. And that's just never going to happen.
Guys, math is important. Let's stick with
math. Math is important here. I don't know if you've ever told anybody on the show that there would be no math, but there's going to be a little math here real quick.
We always slip in math here. We're trying to educate people.
Got to slip in some math. So you've got 4 key metrics that forecast ROI from ads, right? So if you're like, I need a 5x return on ad spend, here are the 4 things that you want to calculate. Number 1, the CPM of your ad platform, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Number 2, the CPC of how much actual traffic is costing you to drive from the channel to your website. Number 3, the conversion rate of your sales page, your funnel, your offer, your website, whatever that is. And number 4, your average order value, right? So like if you are, this is just straight up what we're seeing happening. Anything less than $100 AOV right now running through Facebook, pretty freaking hard to get that to be profitable. Like unless you're the first, best, and newest in your space, like probably not going to happen. So with that, and the reason for bringing up the Adderall Y is you're going to have a greater opportunity to have a significantly higher return on TikTok than you are on Facebook right now. Because when most brands sort of like they switch agencies or they switch contractors or they're upset that their ads or their marketing isn't working, it's usually because they don't know how to diagnose the actual problem. And it's a lot of times it's typically not even an ads problem. It's like I have a competition problem. Like there's too many people trying to target what I'm targeting, CPM, or their funnel or offer is not converting well enough, or their average order value isn't high enough to make the advertising cost, attractive to them of what they're looking for within the business, right? So they're like, oh, this is an ads problem. And it's like, it's not really an ads problem. It's kind of always been an expectations problem, or like we didn't forecast, from the onset. And so the ROI potential on TikTok, just to draw that full circle, is just significantly higher because when you factor in the 4 data points that go into forecasting what your ROI can even be, it just sets up much better for you as a brand. Like I'm talking Facebook 2015, 2016, like when the going was really good, like when you could get after it, but now with so many advertisers on Facebook and Instagram, like it's become a saturated space, and it's still working. Like Facebook ads crush it for anything high ticket or anything.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is going back to math. And again, this is not a math show, but in business, we've had to like kind of shake people and say, listen, if your business model doesn't make sense, that your spend is too high, your cost of goods is too high. And then ultimately, like the supply chain, again, at Amazon or anything like that, the costs are kind of forecasted for you. On average, you're going to be spending roughly, I'm going to say 10 to 20% probably in ads in terms of like what your overall investment is, your cost of goods, all those numbers kind of lead you to a path of what you can achieve and what you should achieve and what you should price at. Competition as well. That being said, you also need to understand that if you can't do that, find those different ways, which is why this is such a really unique channel to take advantage of right now. And I know you preach all the time, Will, of why aren't more people running or sprinting to this operation than like, why are you talking to me today instead of like fielding calls of people saying, I need to be on TikTok, let's go.
Oh, we're doing that too.
That too. You just have other people to do that for you. Right?
Doing it. For sure.
What is there a gap of leading the trend and people are just like, oh, it's a trend, it's he'll go away. But this is kind of like a lasting, pretty important thing to take advantage of and capture.
No, I really do mean that. And it's, you know, there's really kind of maybe two themes there with that, and some things that I've just been seeing as being a fellow marketer, like you in the space. And then just, what I hear from, those that we talk to on the phone, or peers, or, my, colleagues and things like that, is like, um, number one, I think a lot of people are still trying to get over like last year to a degree. They're sort of stuck in like, oh, Facebook really screwed me, right? Or like my business was really hit hard by Facebook ads. Like, I mean, how many brands do you know where their number one source of almost everything was Facebook ads? Like, there's a lot of brands out there that were predominantly reliant on Facebook. And when this data thing happened, number one, just like any other black swan event, it clears the bottom 20%, right? Like survival of the fittest. So, if you haven't been diversifying already, like you're in process of being weeded out because of not being able to keep up, with the evolving times of digital marketing. Or number two, you haven't sort of evolved your offer or your price points, or introduced maybe higher ticket offers into your marketing mix in order to, have higher profitability. And, if you've relied on selling a $50 product through Facebook, you better have some pretty deep pockets, right? In order to cash flow that and keep it profitable. So I think there's that sting of last year. There's like, brands who are hesitant to spend because like their profitability maybe towards the end of last year was just really bad. And we saw some of that. Like there was this pretty well-known brand that we worked with that had some pretty massive declines in sales because they were so reliant on Facebook ads. I mean, we're talking like spending a couple $100,000 a month, and the ROI just wasn't there, after iOS, right? Like that was a real thing. Like a lot of brands saw 20 to 30% decline in their return on ad spend, at any points over the last 6 months. So there's sort of that factor. And then I think the second factor is, it's kind of maybe twofold. One, not being sure how to develop the ad creative for TikTok. So that's keeping people like, I don't know how to develop ads, or I don't know how to run the ads on TikTok. And number two is a lot of brands don't know how to scale their creative output for paid social, kind of just in and of itself, right? Is like e-com brings so many non-traditional marketing business type people to the space, right? Because they see, man, I can make a killing online. But they don't see how much actual ad creative goes into the production process to keep these paid channels sort of going. And with TikTok, because it demands a lot of ad creative, like you need a lot of user generated videos in order to run the channel. A lot of brands are struggling to adapt from their paid Facebook and Instagram ways over the last 3, 4, 5 years and adapt to TikTok. And they're either not ready to take on the creative output that is needed in order to launch the channel. They don't know how to develop the creative. They don't know how to run the channel itself, like structure the campaigns, how to test, how to scale it. And so plus the sort of, apocalyptic wave that a lot of people experienced from Facebook and iOS. Those are some of the things that we're seeing of just some of the hesitancy. Whereas there are other people who are like, yeah, let's go freaking do this. Like, let's go get in TikTok. I'm still running Facebook. Things are good there. Like TikTok should really be a channel for new growth, especially if you're an established brand.
Absolutely. Well, here's the conundrum, and I think a lot of people encounter too. Well, is a growth math. I'm back to math again. Gosh, I should have just labeled this TikTok math.
We should relabel this the math show.
The ad math show. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, here's a question. I think it's been brought up by a lot of people in the PPC space and Amazon, and it brings about the marketer's dilemma, right? Of when you have a spend, and at which at a certain spend, call it $1,000, you get your output, right? How much is that yielding return in revenue? Mm-hmm. At scale, in theory, you should know that, okay, well, that is a percentage lift. If I put in 10 times that, in theory, I should hopefully get 10 times more. If not, I will hopefully get more than just 10 times of that. The math problem is it's not a growth factor. That's the same but at a different spend level. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
you're the more you put in, it's still the same results, but it's not growth. There's no trajectory with it. At what point do people need to assess, or why do you think people assess it in the way of, oh, if I spend more money, I'm going to get more sales? It may not equate that way. It might just be a 1-to-1 instead of
Yeah.
I put in $1, I'm going to get kicked back $2.50. It might be I put in $1, I get back $1 in sales. So it's a
Yeah.
wash ultimately as an investment as terms of return. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
I mean, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think, if you've been in the game for a while, the game of digital marketing, of being a CMO, marketing director, et cetera, and if you're at a little bit more of an established brand, you're more often than not going to be making decisions based on LTV versus so it's kind of like this mindset, right? Like mindset of play small versus play big. If I play small, I'm making decisions based on 1-day ROAS, right? So I put in $1 into Facebook or TikTok today, I made $1 back or $2 or $3. When you play the big boy game, or you play like I'm trying to grow my business through marketing, and marketing is a huge piece to my growth, you're able to forecast that a customer is worth $300 for me, and I'm willing to pay $150 to acquire that customer because I've done the math. Maybe you need to work with a CFO or something to do the math to say, okay, this makes sense for our business. We can afford to pay $150 to acquire that customer. And that's a massive shift that most brands never even come close to even making, especially if you're trying to evolve from like 6-figure to 7-figure, or from 7-figure to 8-figure. I'd say more often than not, the 8, and I mean, I've consulted a lot of 8-figure brands where they still struggle with this too, is like, but if you think of like these huge subscription brands, think of like some ones that we all probably know, Hims, Harry's, maybe some people out there know Lumen Skin, which is a pretty big men's skincare brand. Brands like this, like their net cash flow is returned on a 90 to 180 day cycle. They're not chasing 1-day return on ad spend. They're making that decision to acquire that customer based on, okay, if I keep this customer for 6 months and my average order value is $50, I can get $300 from this customer. I'll pay $50 to $100 to acquire them because I can 3x it.
Right.
And there's a golden rule. And this is not my golden rule. This is Dan Kennedy, the rest in peace, Dan Kennedy, the legend. He who spends the most to acquire a customer wins. And that rule will always remain to be true. And so like at no point do I ever ask anybody or recommend to anybody to negligently spend. Never negligently spend, never like force people to spend money. But how are you looking at the business model, and like how are you looking at what ads can do for your business?
Right.
And so that's the difference between making decisions based on 1-day ROAS versus LTV. Because if you're making decisions based on LTV, you're making sort of these bigger growth, thriving type decisions versus like surviving type decisions.
Right. We all like to look at the day-to-day sales, and we get the highs and lows. It's the vanity metrics, if you will, of, oh, look at this, I
Absolutely.
spent $10 and I got $300 worth of sales. That's going to happen to me on a day-to-day basis, instead of what's the lifetime value of my customer? How do I know? And like, okay, let's scale it quickly. And people, I don't think, like pull that trigger
Yeah.
soon enough. Is that fair to say? Well, they just
Yeah, I
don't pull
think
it.
so. Something that I've been like digging into a lot this year is crypto, like cryptocurrency, right? So like if any listeners are like they love investing into the stock market or into crypto, it's like Warren Buffett has always said like the best, safest investment is to put hundreds or thousands of dollars into the S&P 500 every month, and then when you look back 5 to 10 years from now, you'll realize how much better that did than trying to day trade, right? And
You're not buying the
it's
dip.
buy the dip, right? And that's this. I posted that like literally 2 days ago. Is like it's the same thing with ads. Like if we're not really thinking about the long term, even 3 to 6 months out, like we're constantly making these reactive decisions to our ads, similar to how a day trader that's trying to get rich on day trades every day, and you'll drive yourself freaking nuts. Like, that's not a long-term mindset. Like,
Yeah.
a long-term mindset towards like marketing is good for my business is like, I need to go get exposure and I need to acquire customers.
Right.
You
And
know?
never how, whatever that vessel is too. And again, like you said, it's long-term vision, growth, opportunity, and
Yeah.
not just doing the quick dollar and what's easy. You have to know
Yeah.
the numbers and you have to get back with that. In the final couple of minutes I have with you, Will, today, what's kind of that 2022 outlook? Like if I'm like, okay, I know TikTok is big, I need to capture a piece of the pie. I need to either advertise or create content or just build a following. What are my first couple things I need to achieve in your eyes starting
Yeah.
as a brand?
So like, as in, if you wanted to test TikTok as a
Yeah.
potential
If this
channel
is
for,
something new, I'm like, I
yeah,
think this is the time we need to try it. It's the
yeah.
early part of the year. We have some cash we can play around with. What's that first step I should probably take as a
One of the
brand?
cool things about TikTok is they actually have a creator marketplace. And so you can actually go to the creator marketplace and build a campaign and then essentially invite influencers to your campaign to produce ad creative for you. This is a big piece of what we do for brands is we source the creators, we write the scripts, we, coordinate getting product to the creators and basically run the creative strategy for the channel. But if you want to run the creative strategy yourself, you would want to go on TikTok Creator Marketplace and start. You're going to have to basically negotiate deals with influencers. Like, some might charge $100, others might charge a couple thousand for a video, but you can start to source content from creators directly through TikTok, directly through TikTok Creator Marketplace. Start getting that ad creative going for yourself. I'd really recommend getting anywhere between 6, 10, 12 different videos that you can go test with. And then we talked a lot about how to create variations earlier on in the show. And, if you went and just did, split test of hooks and split test of text overlays, those 8 to 10 ads could be 100 for you very quickly, where like you've found a fast way to scale up your creative output. Now you've got plenty of content to go test the channel for 30 or 60 days and use a lot of the same practices that you're using on Facebook. Go test a big wide open audience. We like to call it in the industry broad. So male or female, 18 to 65, no targeting. Go target large interests. So if you are a health, if you have a supplement or a food product or something like that in the health and wellness space, go target the large health and wellness target interests. Those are going to present the largest opportunity for scaling your budget after you crack the ad creative. And then go run lookalikes of your buyer list. And you've got 3 seed audiences that are the best chance for success to get going early on. You've got the volume of creative there to go test the channel. And you've negotiated those individual relationships with the creators in order to source the content. And then I'd start testing the creative, and in a very controlled environment, right? So test one variable at a time. Don't test a bunch of different variables at a time. And, it could be a very viable channel for you as you navigate it, just making sure that you're organized in that process. So yeah, I think that could be some initial ways to get started.
It's all great tips and makes sense to me. If something like this is intriguing or if I have more questions, again, as someone is catching this on the back end and they're just like, I need to get more download or I need Will to help me out with more of my math problems. What are the best ways we can connect them with you, man?
Yeah, pleasure. So, if anybody wants to get a TikTok ads blueprint, they can go to ttadsblueprint.com. We'll basically create a custom blueprint for you to navigate best practices and how to go about testing and scaling the channel. So that's one way. Of course, you can always just hit us up through our website. That's reasonagency.co. Primarily where we specialize is helping brands reduce their CAC so they can scale further. So if you're already running ads, that's an optimal way to potentially get in touch with us. So yeah, reasonagency.co, and then TT Ads blueprint.com is the other way to get that free blueprint. So anybody that wants to check that out.
Easy enough. And we'll make sure we try to link that out too in the comment section as well. Will people get in touch with you? Is that just through the website? Is that the best way, or follow you on LinkedIn? Best ways to follow?
LinkedIn's great. I definitely, post a ton of tips and other, things that we're testing or even that I'm testing as a media buyer, on the channel. I still run high spend accounts, even to this day, even as a founder and a CEO, like my skills need to be sharp as well as a media buyer. And so yeah, Facebook and LinkedIn, both are, you can find me on my personal Facebook or, business LinkedIn for myself, and definitely, shoot any questions or anything like that you might have there as well.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you spending a dreary January day with us from Orlando, Florida. But we appreciate you spending some time in my corner of the internet. Like I said, everyone who gets through an episode with me, I call them friends of the show now. So you've now
Brilliant.
been deemed a friend of the show. Welcome to come back on anytime that we have some unique, interesting insights like today. But I appreciate your time, effort,
Pleasure.
and we'll make sure people get in touch with you if they have more questions. So thanks so much for hopping on today.
Thank you as well. It was great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you again, Will Perry of there it is, Reason Agency. I'm clicking all over the place. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I guess it's time to wrap up this episode. But again, Will Perry, thank you so much for hopping on Crossover Commerce today. It is something that if you just sit back and listen, and I'm taking notes here on the side as well, when you can understand the value of opportunity, but taking advantage of early on, of diversification, the ability to make sure that you have those omni-channel presence. Again, it doesn't have to be, I have to do 50 TikTok ads in a single day. You heard it from him. You can break it down individually. You can break it down of certain junctures of, hey, it's the first 3 seconds. I have the unboxing video. I have all of those great tips that we were talking about earlier in the episode. We'll make sure that we highlight those in the podcast, or you can just go to usa.pingpongx.com/podcast and check out those highlights when we upload the feed. I'm Ryan Kramer. This has been episode 211 of Crossover Commerce. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode. Take care.